Can you see the screen? This call is now being recorded.
Yes, ma'am.
Huh. So we are going to start with the next part after lack of Peron, and that is genomics. What exactly genomics means, what comes under this part, and how it is applicable, that we will discuss. The term genome, it was introduced by Edwin Clare in 1920, is the total genetic constitution of an organism. It is complete copy of genetic information, that means DNA, or one complete set of chromosomes, maybe monoploid or haploid of an individual. So the term genetics, which is coined by T.H. Roderick in 1986, is the study of genomes through analysis, sequencing, and mapping of genes along with the study of their functions. The sequencing of yeast, Drosophila mouse genome was done in order to facilitate the comparative studies between humans and other organisms commonly used for genetic studies in laboratory. Genomics study may be classified into two types. First is structural genomics, which involves mapping, sequencing, and analysis of genome, whereas functional genomics deals with the study of functions of all gene sequences and their expression in organisms. For example, means in the structural genomics, what is done, that particular entire genome of that particular organism, that is in that case mapping, sequencing of those genes base pairs, and then analysis of this, it is done, and how it can be applicable in the normal life, that is what related to functional genomics. How it is expressed and where it is used, how it is related, those things are studied under second type, that is functional genomics. Genomics is used in agriculture to develop transgenic crops having more desirable characters. This part we have last year, I think to some extent we have learned, but still I just want to tell you about this. In the agriculture, so many crop plants are there which are needed to be in large quantity for human beings in daily life, and those plants with more desirable characters are produced, and for that genomics study is very important to develop the improved varieties of those crops, and that's why in agriculture it is very important to study genomics of these crops so that transgenic crops can be developed with the desirable characters. Now what is that transgenic? In the next chapter we will be studying in detail what is that method and all. Genetic markers developed in genomics have applications in forensic analysis. This point we will discuss in the next part of this chapter. You know, everybody, forensic analysis, where the criminals are uh, detected. You must have observed that series, detective series, where we can find out who is criminal, who is, and using those uh, different what you can say cells, maybe blood cell or hair or such type of things are used, and then from that it can be detected as per that suspicious who as per the suspicious person's uh, genes, and the at the that particular place whatever is observed, maybe bloods, hair sample, whichever the sample, using that it can be detected. So that is what forensic science, everybody must have watched those serials also, they must be knowing. So genomics can lead to introduce new gene in microbes to produce enzymes, therapeutic proteins, and even biofuels, that we will see later. Now, what exactly HGP means? Introduction to HGP, Human Genome Project. which was an international scientific research project that aimed to determine the complete sequence of nucleotide base pairs that make up human DNA and all the genes it contains. Is total makeup of the DNA, the entire makeup of the DNA, whatever the genes are present in the DNA, those all are studied. Its nucleotide sequence, nucleotide base sequences, these are studied, and then where it is which gene is responsible for which character, that everything is studied. Then defective genes are studied, so rare diseases can be observed, defective genes can be replaced by the normal, and so many all. So for that, this human genome project was very much important to study all these things. We will discuss now. It remains the world's largest collaborative biological project. The idea was picked up in 1984 by US government when the planning started. The project was formally launched in 1990 and was declared complete in 2003. Participating countries and funding agencies were in 1990, the two major funding agencies, the US Department of Energy and National Institute of Health, developed an MOU in order to coordinate plans and set the clock for the initiation of the project. Initiation of that project, then how much time it will be taking, and then how much fund is to be raised, how it can be utilized, where it can be utilized, which technologies are to be used, etc., etc., everything. Most of the government sponsored sequencing was performed in 20 universities and research centers in the United States, United Kingdom, Japan, France, Germany, Canada, and China. A parallel project was conducted outside the government sponsorship by the Celera Corporation or the Celera Genomics, which was formally launched in 1998. 3 billion project was formally launched in 1990 by the US Department of Energy and National Institute of Health. And the Human Genome Project was a 13-year-long publicly funded project initiated in 1990 with the objective of determining the DNA sequence of the entire euchromatic human genome within 15 years. Its maximum time period expected was 15 years, but before that only we could complete the project. And this was, as I told, the funding agencies from US, and the time duration was also fixed, but within, not within, before the time, much more early we could finish it. Now, what were the goals of HGP, Human Genome Project? First, to identify and map all the 20,000 to 25,000 genes, approximately it was considered, in human DNA from a physical and functional standpoint. Means what? First, to identify the DNA, human DNA, and from physical and functional standpoint, from physically how it is and functionally how it works. Means whatever the genes present, how they are, how many base pairs, and then how they function, for which particular function characteristic they are performing, they are functioning, etc. To determine the sequence of the 3 billion chemical base pairs that make up the human DNA. It was just uh, considered that there are so many chemical base pairs, and accordingly, so to study that it will take a long time. So 20 different institutes and research institutes and universities were studying at a time at different levels, and for that, to determine the total 3 billion chemical base pairs present in human DNA. Then to store this information in database. Then whatever the information is, a large information was there about so many genes or so many base pairs on human DNA, and that database was to be made and then stored properly. That information was supposed to be stored and maintained properly. So that was one more aim. Then to discover more efficient technologies for data analysis. Though data is there, that its analysis is also very important. So for that, advanced technologies were required, and accordingly, efficient technologies were to be discovered. Then allow the private sector access to the informations and technologies that arise from this project. So not these universities and research institutes which are related to the government were not enough for the further studies. So to allow the private sector also to access this information and to study further part using different technologies. Then also to sequence the genomes of other organisms that are important in medical research, such as mouse, Drosophila, etc. Not only human directly, we can't study on the human DNA. Before that, no one directly takes experiment on the higher organisms. Before that, lower organisms are generally used, and for that, the study of such organisms like uh, mouse, Drosophila, etc., are to be done, and that also comparative studies, which genes are related, or which functions of the genes are related to the humans, or such type of study is also required. So these organisms like mouse and Drosophila, their study is also required, and for that their sequencing of the genomes is also necessary. And the most important, the last one, is considered to be to address ethical, legal, and social issues. While studying this, there may be so many ethical, legal, and social issues which may create an havoc in the society. So to avoid it, these all these rules are to be made accordingly and followed by everyone. Now, now what exactly the applications of HGPR will see? The sequencing of the human genome holds benefits for many fields, from molecular medicine to human evolution. Not on the only on the molecular level for the medicinal purpose, but it helps in the studies of human evolution. So that is the most important. How human being must have been evolved, what is the relation with the others ancestors as well as with the other organisms, so that can be studied with the help of HGP. It helps in identifying disease causing genes. When you study the sequence of base pairs on DNA or the genes, then you can come to know its function, and then which gene is responsible for which disease, and then that defective gene can be replaced by the normal. So such studies are very useful. So it helps in identifying disease causing genes. Identification of mutations linked to different forms of cancer. And this is also very, very important. Which mutations are responsible to create cancer, or how it is linked to form the cancerous cells. So that also can be studied with the help of HGP. The sequence of DNA is stored in databases available to anyone on the internet. So once it is made available to everyone on internet, this database studies, then others also can study again in detail. Further studies also can be continued. Then the US National Center for Biotechnology Information and sister organizations in Europe and Japan house the gene sequence in the database known as GeneBank, along with sequences of known and hypothetical genes and proteins. Now, these gene banks are very important because with the help of these gene banks, the genes are studied as and when required. There, these genes are stored. So these, just like library, normal library, book library, gene libraries and gene banks are also there. So that concept is little bit new, not now, but that time. So this is also very important. So this is one of the applications. Then we'll allow the advances in agriculture through genetic modification to yield healthier, more disease resistant crops. Here, this is very, very important for the normal human beings or the society, common people, where the daily food or staple food of those in those area, in whatever the area the people live, that food or any other crops, you can say, they are, if not healthier, or very easily they are getting affected by the diseases, then the yield also gets affected, yield of the crop is also is affected, and overall storage and everything is nutritional value, everything gets affected. And to overcome this problem, more healthier, more disease resistant, such type of crops can be produced using this technology. Benefited the advancement of forensic science. Just now I told you that to know the criminals in the forensic science, this is very, very much useful. Now, some of the organisms also, how they are related to human genome, that also we'll see, and some important points which came from the study of human genome project are these. Total length is just 3000 MB, and approximately 40,000 genes, that means coding sequences, are found. Gene sequences are less than 5%, whereas intergenic regions, that means junk, which are not useful, these are 95%. Then in gene sequencing also, if you remember, exons and introns. Exons are actual coding sequences, whereas introns are non-coding sequences. So the number of exons is much less than the introns, that is 1.5, which are coding, and 3.5, which are non-coding. See, very what you can say, these studies, how we found, we got this information from the studies. Repeats are more than 50%. Repeats means what? The same sequences of nitrogen bases are repeated. So that is what repeats. They are more than 50% in the total amount of DNA. So this is what about some of the findings from the Human Genome Project. Human races have similar genes. Similar genes are present. Now, you know, there are different racial expressions, Caucasian, then African, then Mongolian, like that. So these are the human races. They have similar genes. So the genome sequence centers have sequenced significant proportions of at least three races. Range of polymorphism within a race can be much greater than the range of differences between by any two individuals of the different race. And very few genes are rare specific. Most of the genes are similar. Very few genes are very rare specific. Race specific means, race specific means what? Whatever the races you observe, just like Mongolian IDOC, Caucasian IDOC, then African IDOC. So these genes which differ the races, they are very specific, and their number is also very less. Now, what model organisms were studied while studying human genomes? Model organisms generally used are bacteria like E. coli, influenza, and several others. E. coli bacteria, which is very common, so study of this was done. Then yeast like Saccharomyces cerevisiae, then plants like Arabidopsis, then roundworm, then fruit fly, which is common fruit fly, Drosophila melanogaster, mouse. So these are the model organisms, and it is observed from the studies that so many characters or the genes present in these organisms, they are to some extent similar to the human genes or human DNA. See, in case of yeast, see, 70 human genes are known to repair mutations in yeasts. See, mutations in yeast. To repair mutations in yeast, 70 human genes are known. See, means how much similarity you can get from the human genes and the yeast-like organisms, lower organisms. Nearly all we know about cell cycle and cancer comes from the studies of yeast. Whatever the cell cycle we have studied and the reason for the cancer, that all the studies which we have done on yeasts. So what are the advantages of studying these organisms? First, about the yeast, the genes present in this organisms, the number is very less, around 6,000. So very few genes are present. Then introns are very less few. Introns which are non-coding regions, these are very less. Then 30% of the yeast genes give same products as human homologue. We see, that's why this is very important to study these other organisms also. That's why side by side, while studying human genomes project, when it was going on, other organisms like these model organisms are also, their studies also was going to be performed. Because of this, on the experimental basis, it has been, from the experiments it has been observed that 31% of the yeast genes give same products as human homologue. Now, the second most commonly used model organism is Drosophila melanogaster. Nearly all we know of how mutations affect gene function come from Drosophila studies. Now, you have learned in case of Drosophila, the size of the wing as well as the color of the eye, where so many mutations are observed. So that from those studies, it is very much common that the functions of the genes are observed, how the mutations affect gene functions from the study of Drosophila. We share 50% of their genes. See, 50% of their genes are similar to us. 61% of genes mutated in 289 human diseases are found in fruit flies. See, in fruit flies like this, 61% of the genes mutated in 289 human diseases. They are found, and these are found in fruit flies. Then 68% of the genes associated with cancers are found in fruit flies. See, these genes are similar. 68% of the genes which are seen in human beings, they are associated with the cancers and they are found in fruit flies. So much of similarities are there, and that's why these model organisms are also very important. Now, the most important, that is mouse, which is considered to be as known as mini humans, where you must also have studied and learned and heard also that mouse as the experimental organism. Why? Because it's very much similar to human system. So physiological systems are very much similar, and that's why this is considered to be mini humans. So very similar physiological systems it contains, and it shares almost 90% of their genes. Means 90% of the genes in mouse are similar to the human beings. That's why this is very important. Now we'll come to the actual and the most important um, part of this chapter, and the last part you can say, that is DNA fingerprinting. We'll study the steps in the DNA fingerprinting and then we will talk about the applications. Who invented it? DNA fingerprinting was developed in 1984 by Alec Jeffrey at the University of Leicester. It's DNA fingerprinting, or this is also called as DNA typing method. It is a method to identify the DNA of an individual. DNA is unique to a person. No two persons or individuals have identical DNA except identical twins or clones. All the cells of a person has same DNA. A specimen for DNA fingerprinting can be any type of cell. For example, blood, saliva, sperm, muscle, teeth, bones, or any DNA bearing cell. Okay, and all cells of the person have same DNA. Remember this thing. Now, what we were talking about just now, I was telling you, I showed you in the slide that 50% repeats are present, more than 50%. And what are that repeats? These are nothing but the base pairs, that sequences of nitrogen bases. Base pair sequences are similar and these are repeated again and again. That is what repeats. Now, that those repeats are having very importance in this genetic engineering and in so many branches related to it. Importance of VNTRs. Now, what are VNTRs? That we will see. DNA contain, as you know, exons and introns. Exons are coding sequences which contain genetic information, whereas introns are non-coding sequences which supply no relevant genetic information at all. But introns contain repeated sequences of base pairs. Though they are not giving any genetic information, but whatever the sequence of base pairs are present on it, these are repeated again and again, and they contain these repeated sequences of base pairs and which are having importance. So these sequences are called variable number tandem repeats. Their number is variable, they are arranged in that particular sequence, and these are repeated. So these are called as VNTR. These are variable number tandem repeats. This is related to introns which do not code anything. They are not giving any genetic information, but their presence is very important because of their sequence, the number of base pairs in that, the sequence of base pairs in that, the repetitions of the base pairs randomly, that is very important. So every human being has some VNTRs, and that is very specific to that particular individual. Particular human being has only particular sequence, only after a particular number of numbers are same, sequences are similar, repetitions are similar. So every human being has some VNTRs. To determine if a person has a particular VNTR, southern blot is performed. That is a technique. It's in this technique, VNTRs are probed through a hybridization reaction with a radioactive version of the VNTR in question sequence. Now see what exactly it is. When we'll discuss the steps involved in this technique, that time we will be it will be giving you a very clear idea. You will understand. The pattern which results from this process is often referred to as a DNA fingerprinting. As you know, nowadays fingerprinting, why this word is used? DNA is of that particular human being. Fingerprint of each human being is very, very specific, and that's why this word is used. That means VNTRs, that means this variable number tandem repeats, are also specific. Their sequence is specific, the number is specific. So VNTRs also very specific to that particular human being, particular person. That's why this is very important. Now we'll study what this technique involves, then you will come to know what exactly its role is. Applications. Invented by Professor A. Southern. These are some of the steps which are used in the Southern blot technique, where DNA is extracted from the sample of an individual, then it is digested into small fragments by restriction enzyme, then that separate DNA fragments by gel electrophoresis, then it is denatured, the entire DNA is changed to single stranded because it is double stranded, then it is applied to the sheet called nitrocellulose paper, and then it makes to permanently attach the DNA to the sheet, and so that the copy can be observed. Radioactive material is used. We will study all these steps in detail now. Apply a radioactive genetic probe, that is radioactive version of VNTR, to nitrocellulose filter paper, and that radioactive probe binds to target sequence, that means VNTRs, and then it is washed out. Excess probe is removed, and then the position of this bands which are present, that can be studied. So we will study these all steps in detail. First step is isolation of DNA. Whichever DNA is to be studied, that DNA sample is required. So that DNA sample is first collected from whatever the samples just now I mentioned about, from the blood sample, hair, saliva, sperm, etc., etc. And then it is isolated. So first stage of this isolation is in the DNA profiling is Cells are broken down to release DNA. Whatever the cells we are using, it has its boundary, cell wall. So we have to isolate the DNA from the cell. Those cells are to be broken. If only a small amount of DNA is available, it can be amplified using the polymerase chain reaction. Now we have nowadays the machines for PCR. If a very small amount of DNA is available, then it can be amplified using the polymerase chain reaction. That means the amount of DNA can be increased by the amplification using this PCR. PCR technique we will be studying in the next chapter. Then you just remember now that if the sample is very small, by using PCR technique, polymerase chain reaction, the amount is increased, can be increased enough for the studies. Then this isolated DNA, by breaking the cell, that DNA is isolated, and if it is in small amount, then it can be amplified, and then this DNA is then processed. How it is processed? That means then what it is done, it is cut into small pieces, its sizing, and then storing. Then what important things are to be needed here is all the technique. It requires specific type of enzymes, restriction enzymes, which in the last chapter we have studied. So restriction enzymes are very much useful. Special enzymes called restriction enzymes are used to cut DNA at specific places. These are restricted to cut in between the specific sequence only, in between the specific nitrogen bases only. So these restriction enzymes cut DNA at specific base sequence. So this is the example given. This is the sequence. This is the double stranded one. This is one strand. This is another strand. GAATTC, and here in the opposite direction, if you read from the opposite direction, that is GAATTC, same sequence. So this will cut, this restriction enzyme will give the cut in between G and A in this sequence only, in between G and A only, so that this is very specific. These enzymes are very specific. They will give cut to the DNA at a very specific point in between the base sequence. The sections of DNA that are cut out are called now restriction fragments. So after cutting the DNA, these fragments of DNA are now called as restriction fragments. This is thousands of restriction fragments of all different sizes, because these enzymes are working at a very particular base sequences. So different lengths with the different number of nitrogen bases on it, such type of fragments, many fragments, thousands of such restriction fragments of different sizes will be produced. Some are long fragments, some are short fragments. So now what is done, the next step is what? These fragments are separated on the basis of size using a process called gel electrophoresis. Now this is very simple and the most commonly used technique, very commonly used one. See, these restriction enzymes now are to be, these fragments are, sorry, these fragments are called as restriction fragments. These are to be separated as per their length, and that as per the size of the length of these fragments, they can be separated using gel electrophoresis. So gel electrophoresis is a technique where agarose gel is used. This is the picture you can see here. This is the agarose gel, and here electrophoresis means electric current is passed through it, so that there are the two negative and positive charges, cathode and anode, two poles are present, right? And these are the wells where through these vials the DNA sample is added to these wells of this agarose gel. Agarose gel is used for the electrophoresis process. DNA fragments are injected into wells and an electric current is applied along the gel. So this is the agarose gel. These are the wells on this, where on these wells, through these vials, this DNA material sample is added. And now these are charged. Electric current is applied to the gel. One is positive, anode and the other is negative. Now, as per the size and the length and the charge of the DNA, separation of the fragment will be taking place. Now, DNA is negatively charged, so obviously, what will happen? DNA is negatively charged, so it is attracted to the positive end of the gel. So, this is negative charge. DNA is added over there in these wells. DNA sample is present, and here is the negative point, here is the positive pole, and here, so when the in the well agar gel wells, this DNA sample is added, then electric current is passed, and DNA being negatively charged, obviously it will move towards positive pole, positively charged uh, end. So this is the positive end. So how it will move then? Shorter the fragments, they will be moving faster. You know that as for the length and the size of these fragments, DNA fragments which are added in the wells of this agarose gel, the shorter, the smaller the fragments, smallest DNAs, they will move faster towards positive poles, and larger will move slowly. So DNA is separated as per the size or the length of the fragments. So DNA is separated on the basis of size. Now what is done? The next step is transfer of DNA to nylon sheet. You know, once that separation is done, what is done? The distribution of these DNA pieces is transferred to a nylon sheet by placing the sheet on the gel and soaking them overnight. Now this is what in the picture you can see. This is the DNA. Suppose this is a sample agarose gel, and this on this agarose gel nitrocellulose paper is added, that is nylon sheet is placed for overnight, so that what will happen? The entire sheet, that nylon sheet will absorb this DNA. Then why this is necessary for the further step, a radioactive material is added which combines with the DNA fragments to produce a fluorescent image. Now see, now to get to know the size, separation and everything very clearly, radioactive material is added which combines with DNA fragments to produce fluorescent images, so that you can see the fluorescent images, and you can see smaller DNA here towards the positive end and the larger heavy large sized towards the negative, because faster movement is of shorter length DNA fragments, so they are towards the positive pole first, and then afterwards you can see the longer one DNA with high molecular weight, or you can say heavy size, long fragments. So it combines with DNA. Now, when the radioactive material is added, then it which combines with DNA fragments and produce fluorescent image. And so that then only we can get the photography. When it is fluorescent, very easily you can get the photograph and we can study comparatively. So a photographic copy of the DNA bands is obtained. A visual signal is produced when the different probes anneal means bind to the complementary sequence in the DNA sample. Visual signal, you can see in this, visual signal is produced when the different probes, these are the radioactive materials, fragments of DNA, single stranded, and they are to the complementary sequence of the DNA sample. Now this is the DNA sample as it is made into fragments, it's denatured normal double stranded structure into single stranded structure, and now using that radioactive material, active material, it is seen now. And then when probe is added, that probe is, it obviously they will join or bind to the complementary sequences on the DNA sample, because only these nitrogen bases which are present, they are very specific, that A only will pair with T, G will pair only with C, and vice versa, like that. Accordingly, only complementary um, nitrogen bases will be anil, so binding will be taking place. Those probes in this way are used, these probes. So a visual signal is produced when the different probes anneal bind to the complementary sequence in the DNA sample. So the pattern of fragment distribution is then analyzed. And this is the machine where you can see this is the gel electrophoresis. These are the anode and cathodes. Here are the wells, and so through which sample is added, DNA sample is added. See, these are the wells which are kept over here, and then DNA sample is added over here. And nitrocellulose paper is kept overnight using this. Now we'll see what are the applications of DNA fingerprinting. First is criminal identification and forensics, used in forensic medicine to confirm the suspect. Whatever the suspicious person is there, that can be confirmed using its suspicious person's uh, sample, and then you can detect whether the person is criminal or not. So in the forensic science, using the DNA sample of the suspect, it can be made confirm whether the suspect is criminal or not. Then to determine family relationships, in the paternity confirmation, there are so many cases you must have read in the newspaper or saw watched on TV, that someone claims for the paternity or maternity of the child. In that case also, that confirmation is also done comparing the sample of the child and the parents, and that is done with the help of DNA fingerprinting. Then along with that, family diseases also, in that particular family, these diseases in the next generation, whether the same disease is newborn babies will be having that particular disease or not, that also can be known with the help of DNA fingerprinting. So family diseases, their study history is studied, so this is also very important. Then applicable to both plants and animals, the same way, in case of plants as well as in case of animals, this DNA fingerprinting is very important to even study the evolution, the relations between the nearby families or the characteristics, etc. Then practical applications of DNA fingerprinting, the most just that I was telling about the paternity and the maternity. Person inherits his or her VNTRs from his or her parents. That VNTRs are studied. If they are similar to the parents, that means that son or the daughter belongs to that uh, father or mother. So that is used. This technique is used by studying VNTRs. These are the patterns. So parent-child BNTR pattern analysis has been used to solve standard father identification cases. Diagnosis of inherited disorder. There are so many disorders which help. This technique helps to know, diagnose disorders in both prenatal and newborn babies. That's what I was telling, whether the newborn baby or prenatal baby will be having that particular rare disease if it is observed, which is not uh, going to be um, good for that newborn baby, or that it may be fatal also. So that can be diagnosed with the help of DNA fingerprinting. Printing. And disorders may include cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, then Huntington's disease, familial Alzheimer's, then sickle cell anemia, thalassemia, and many more. In the last chapter, we have studied all these diseases, isn't it? So that can be detected. Then molecular archaeology at the molecular level, if you study, then this is one example. Tyrolean iceman who was found in the Alps and the mountains of Egypt, found in the dry desert. The iceman was found to be around 5,300 years old, and DNA was extracted from the remains of his gut, which found small traces of food that he ate. That means iceman. This was one of the most historic archaeological discoveries in the last century. So this is what about this chapter we have um, completed. Now I'll just want to revise once again the steps involved in the DNA fingerprinting, and if you have any doubts, you can ask me. First is what? The collection of the sample. The sample may be anything: blood, sample, saliva, sperm, hair, nail, anything. And this sample is, the cells are broken down to release DNA. DNA sample is collected. Then DNA is isolated like this. And if it is in small quantity, PCR method is used. And then this DNA is cut into small specific pieces as per the sequence. We are using here restriction enzymes to cut the DNA, which are very specific. So these restriction enzymes cut DNA at a very specific base sequences. Once the DNA is cut, then these are called as these fragments with small or larger length. They are called as restriction fragments. Then these fragments are added to the where the wells of agarose gel, means agarose gel electrophoresis is the method which is used. So which contains the wells. Through these wells the DNA sample is added to the wells of these gel, agarose gel, and then this agarose gel, through this the current, electric current is applied with these negative and positive notes, where being DNA as negatively charged, obviously it will move towards positive pole. And as there are the different lengths of DNA, as per the size, it will move shorter the fragment, it will move faster, and accordingly these fragments are to be separated. Then after that, this DNA is transferred to the nitrocellulose paper. Nylon sheet is placed. So this this nylon sheet is placed on this gel, which soaks the entire DNA. It is placed overnight, and then on that radioactive material is used, so that what will happen when radioactive material is added, which combines with the DNA fragments to produce fluorescent images. This radioactive probe is useful for getting the images. So photographic copy of DNA bands is obtained. And you know that all these fragments which are single stranded, means these are denatured. When the probe is added, obviously only those probe, means these are also the DNA sequence with the radioactive form, only those probes will be combined with the complementary nucleotides on the those fragments. So a visual signal is produced when the different probes anneal, means bind to the complementary sequence in the DNA sample. Whatever the sample DNA fragments we have separated using this gel electrophoresis, when probe is added, that is the fluorescent, that is the radioactive material with the um, specific DNA sequences. Only those probes will anneal to those DNA fragments which are having complementary nucleotides or sequences. And this way, this pattern is very much useful. This pattern of fragment distribution is then analyzed, studied for the further study. And these are so many applications. This is the machine picture of um, this is used for the DNA fingerprinting, and this one for the nitrocellulose paper. Both the ways these are used. So this is all about the technique and then applications of DNA fingerprinting.